Hey, everybody, and welcome to And Action Filmmaking Podcast. I'm Tommy DiNucci. As always, with me is Mikey Messier. How
Hey,
you
Tommy.
guys doing this week? We're coming at you at a different time and date because, well, tomorrow is Independence Day. So it's our special 4th of July episode. We're switching things up a little bit. But hey, we're still here. We're putting out some great podcast content for you. And today we have a very fun topic that I'm excited about. Since America was discovered by an Italian, uh, that's a line from Rocky. Um, we're going to be talking about Vincent Pastore, a great Italian American actor who I've gotten a chance to work with both sides of the camera, although we were never actually in a scene together. We've worked in the same movie as actors, and I've gotten a chance to direct him. He's a legend in terms of the gangster movies. Everybody has seen this guy. You probably better know him as Big Pussy in The Sopranos. I think that's where he probably kind of exploded in pop culture fame. And yeah, we're going to be talking all about Vinny Pastore, some of the fun tips that he's told me about acting along the way, some fun stories that he's told me. We're gonna be just kind of getting into all of it. And he's really got an amazing kind of rise to the world of acting. We'll talk about that more later. But the cool thing about Vinny is he didn't really get into acting until his 30s, almost early 40s. So here's a guy who had a whole nother lifetime as they lived a whole nother lifetime before really finding that fame. And I think that's really inspiring to a lot of actors out there who may feel nervous, like, "Ooh, I'm way behind here. What do I do?" Well, maybe Vincent's story can inspire you that there's a lot more time than you think sometimes. But before we get into that, Mike, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that are going on, some of the current affairs in the world of film.
Sure.
We've been following this potential SAG strike for a long time now. It's been a month plus, just kind of seeing what's going to happen. Everybody's been waiting for this June 30th at midnight. That's when the contract expires. They're either going to strike or they're going to make a deal. And there was even a video that came out where we had Fran Drescher basically saying that we're very optimistic. The talks went really great over the weekend, and we feel like we're going to reach a seminal deal. But then the following week, a list of 1,000 of the top actors, including Meryl Streep, basically signed a petition saying, no, we're not messing around. Like, if we don't get what we want, like, we're really out of here. We don't care anymore. And that kind of scared everybody. Almost like the Vegas odds shifted from like, they're going to make a deal to, ooh, maybe they're not going to make a deal. And now here we are in the beginning of July. That June 30th date has passed. And guess what? There was a little bit of an unexpected a scenario that presented itself where now SAG has basically decided to push the talks to the 12th. So July 12th is right around the corner, really. I mean, what's the difference now, waiting another 9, 10 days? But to me, Mike, that says that there probably won't be a strike. I'm going to knock on wood because Lord knows I don't want to
Sure.
strike. I want to get back to work. But to me, that shows that both sides are kind of getting close to making a deal. Otherwise, because it's like if you're that diametrically opposed, you'd probably just go ahead and strike.
Yeah, Tommy. And, I don't think it's a sign of weakness. I got some email from the, SAG after saying, hey, this is not a sign of weakness. And I don't think it is. I mean, I think it's called negotiations, and these things are not easy. And now the whole wrinkle of streaming and actors' residuals, writers' residuals, all these things that are causing the writers' strike first and potentially a actors' strike. They are complicated topics, and you could put, the best negotiators in the world in there and the best experts on how streaming media, causes income and so forth. And it's going to take some time to figure this out. It's above my pay scale, as they say, as far as figuring out what's fair. And so I don't really find fault in at least, keeping the negotiations open and trying to figure out something for everybody. I would add this, Tommy. I think there's always going to be, if you're talking about the top 1,000 actors or so, signing a petition, their needs, demands, and desires are going to be drastically different than the actors 1001 through everybody else. You know what I mean? So, and you've got to figure that with a union too. I
Yeah.
mean, you have a lot of different members. I mean, probably 95% of the actors aren't working at any given time or more, and so you have to kind of make a deal that's good for everybody, and that's really hard to do as well. So I think whoever's in the front lines, the grunts, so to speak, negotiating this stuff, the lawyers, the agents, whoever, they have their work ahead of them. So I'm willing to be patient from my end.
Well, Mike, the good news is we're going to find out real soon. Like I said, July 12th, we're going to find out what's happening with SAG. At least that's what they tell us. Then they'll probably be like, we're pushing it to August 1st.
Right.
All right, that's enough of that bullshit. Let's get into what we came here to talk about. Before I do that, let's check in. Stephen E., what's happening, brother? Always good to see you here on a rare Monday and action. Michael Whitney, Michael, I'm feeling pretty good, brother. We are feeling pretty good today. It's a good, big holiday week. Hi, Tommy. Congrats on the epic trailer for The Collective. Came as a real surprise after last week's episode. When will we know where to stream it? Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that, man. I was really excited to see the response to the trailer. A lot of people just said so many kind things about it, and seems like there's a lot of excitement brewing for that one. I loved seeing, me being a pro wrestling fan, I loved seeing all the Mercedes Monet fans come out and support it, and just really great to see the buzz that movie's getting. And I can't tell you how much fun I had making that movie. It was like playing with live action figures, human-sized action figures, and just getting all this great action adventure fun to happen in front of a camera lens. So we love doing it, and we appreciate you kind of following along and checking it out. As far as where to stream it, you're not going to believe me, Scott, but they don't tell me those things. Those are things that I usually find out, like, honestly, like a week or two before. So I'll definitely update you on that. And as soon as I find out where we can stream it, you will be updated on the end action here. Michael says, I can't wait to see it. Thank you, Michael. Melissa, what's up, Melissa? Hello, boys. Last week's episode was fun. Oh, thank you so much. That was episode 50, Reflecting on Film. It was nice for Mike and I to just kind of reminisce on those first 50 episodes that we did. Always fun, Melissa. I got the censors ready. No censors. Let Tommy moon us. Oops, I
Oh
mean
boy.
this again. Oh my goodness, that's right. I forgot. I had a wardrobe malfunction last week. A little nip slip. Stephen E., hopefully Fran, aka the nanny. July 12th, I'll be shooting a commercial that day.
Oh, great.
Hey, congrats on booking a commercial. Melissa, you will have to start the campaign, I guess. All right, a lot of nip slip talk. All right, guys, so here we go. We're talking about Vincent Pastore. Now, a lot of people might know him better, like I said, as Big Pussy on The Sopranos. If you don't know about The Sopranos, I highly recommend you go out and watch it. It's one of the greatest American TV shows of all time. It's one of those shows that, in my opinion, The Sopranos was kind of in a lot of ways, the prototype for like what we see now as a high-end TV show that is not network. At the time it was kind of rare for, we were used to seeing TV shows on ABC, CBS, Fox, but to see a TV show on a movie channel like HBO, that was very different at the time. It had just kind of started to become a thing in the 90s, and I think Sopranos was one of the first ones to really just blow people's minds, because what you had from a filmmaking standpoint, you had these incredibly cinematic TV shows. So like every show was like watching a feature film. And they took a really unique approach to a genre that had been kind of played out. You could argue that mafia movies have always been a thing. If you go back to the beginning of time, I mean, from Bugsy Siegel, movies and gangster movies and the literally like pre-World War II gangster movies. Since the beginning of film, they were making mafia movies. People are always drawn to that dark side of the world. We've talked about this on other episodes. People are enthralled by the fact that, there's something sexy about the mafia. It's like, although we know that it's bad, we kind of respect the fact that there's a code of honor and that these people do things to, advance themselves and their families,
Right.
and kind of, anti-hero stuff. We talked about that. And what was unique about The Sopranos is, like I said, it was kind of the first TV show to kind of be that next level show. And it's just a pop culture phenomenon when you talk about merchandising, when you talk about you know, t-shirts and everything else. It's a big deal, and Vincent Pastore was right in the middle of that. But before that, he had a very interesting story and path that led him to that kind of a spot. So we're just going to kind of get right into it. This is some information that we pulled. Vincent Pastore was born July 14th. His birthday's coming right up in the Bronx, New York. He's best known for his portrayals of Big Pussy Bumpin' Sarah on the HBO show The Sopranos. The cool thing about Vincent, like I said, is he grew up in the city. He was in the Navy for a little while, and then got into the bar scene.
Right.
So Vincent ran a bar, and it was one of those classic kind of 1970s bars where you'd have bands playing in there, and um, he wasn't really thinking about being an actor, And I remember having conversations with him and him telling me how, he met a lot of these types of wise guy characters because, obviously, if you're in the bar scene in New York in the 1970s, you're going to meet a couple of wise guys. And I think that it's kind of unique that he got to see how these guys acted in real life, not in a movie. And I'm sure that that helped him down the road when he started portraying all of these kind of very famous gangster roles.
Yeah, Tommy. Let me go back to the impact of that particular program, The Sopranos. At the time, like you said, that was what put kind of HBO original programming on the map. And they had a couple of previous successes with Gary Shandling and the Larry Sanders Show and the Kids in the Hall, but those were more like half-hour comedies. This was a one-hour drama that people were literally planning their Sunday nights around. Tommy, I mean, it was destination viewing. People didn't, at the time, a lot of people still couldn't figure out how to use a VCR, and I don't think DVD-Rs were out yet. So people would still, if they wanted to see The Sopranos, they would make a point to be home Sunday night, I believe at 9 o'clock Eastern. The Sopranos, there was a few other shows that came either before or after The Sopranos on Sunday nights, like The Wire, and before that you had Oz and 6 Feet Under. And Sunday night programming, it's not TV, it's HBO. I mean, how many times was that put into our head? And HBO Sunday night is family night, and you felt like you were in this weird, violent family. And Big Pussy character and Vincent as an actor were huge parts of that success. And to this day, Tommy, you can be walking around. There's still these things called indoor shopping malls, and you'll be walking around and they have the kiosk, and you'll still see a Tony Soprano or an ensemble piece of a bunch of the characters, including Big Pussy, in these shopping mall, framed artworks. You know what I mean? And so you feel like you're kind of perpetually in 1998 at times, because The Soprano is just one of these things like Mickey Mouse, that just sticks in our cultural craw, forever, or at least for the duration of our lives. So, and Vincent is a big part of that Soprano success.
Yeah, and we don't want to turn this into an episode on The Sopranos, but I will say this: I think that a lot of people, what they found so unique about the show, and Vincent was very much a part of this, is yes, there was plenty of classic mafia tropes on the show, and all that good stuff, and the action, and the ass kicking, and all that violence, and all the good stuff. But what made it unique was you get to see what these gangsters are like when they go home, and when they're just kind of like in their regular everyday lives. You've got the main mob boss of a family going to a therapist, and we get to see what that's like. So they really did kind of, turn the genre on its head a little bit and show us a different side of gangsters that, we don't often get to see in a lot of other gangster movies. So before that, Vincent was doing his club thing. I want to say, you know, I want to say the Crazy Horse was the name of his bar. I could be wrong, but it had a really cool name like that. There was another bar he told me about called Lollipops. These were just classic 70s bars where people went to go watch music being played live and have a good time. And in that bar world, at some point along the road, Vincent meets Matt Dillon and Kevin Dillon, and that's pretty much, as the story goes, like where he got his first interest into acting. And what that whole world is all about. Um, and then, what's funny to me is, and I didn't realize this until after the fact, and I had been chatting with Vincent, and we'll get into how we met later, but it's kind of funny, man, because he's in Goodfellas. It's one of those things where I don't want to say if you blink you can miss him because he's very apparent. Like once you know what you're looking for. But there's a great scene in the Copa nightclub where Vincent is hauling a rack of fur coats out, and I want to say it's either Pesci or De Niro, like tells him where to go, and he takes the coats, or maybe it's not either one of Pesci. It's not Pesci or De Niro. It's the guy who played like the manager of the Copa,
Right.
and he kind of like tells him where to go, and it's a great shot of Vincent kind of like leafing through the coats, and it's really cool because if you watch it, like even in that one little bit, Vincent's just terrific. He all he's doing is hauling some coats down a hallway, but he's got this kind of spirit and spunk to him where he looks like he's busy and he looks like it's an active place and he's counting and it's not just like some really and traditionally it's kind of like a background actor role, but he did so much with it where it looked so authentic that he made the back of this underworld land that's this whole business that's going on behind the business. He just made it look so active by like I said, thumbing through the coats and making sure that he's got it all right on the rack and then taking off with it, and really cool to see that. And I'm sure for him being a young man at the time, like I said, I think he was in his late 30s or early 40s at this point, getting a chance to be on set with Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci and all these guys. I mean, uh, that must have been just an amazing experience for a new actor, young guy coming up in the scene.
Yeah, the I listened to Vincent speak with Chaz Palminteri, another person you've worked with involved on Chaz's podcast, and he basically says the Dillon brothers, Matt Dillon, who's been in everything, and Kevin Dillon from Entourage, among other things. He said that these two guys encouraged him, and they were watching some type of movie with a lot of gangster characters, and the Dillon brothers were kind of with Vinny, and they said, "Hey, you can do this. You can be one of these guys." And I guess they kind of led him in the right direction. And the next thing you know, it's one of those things where it's, he became a big time player in a relatively short time. But as you said, he had this whole previous life of a nightclub manager. And so I think when you're telling about that scene in Goodfellas, to me, the word that comes to my mind is sincerity and a genuine quality. Like he wasn't a person who didn't know how to looking through the coats. Because if it was me or someone else, you'd be kind of just like, oh. He actually had done this probably thousands of times in real life, and it was second nature to him. And that sincerity and performance and that comfortableness probably lent a lot to that scene. And as you said, got him further notice for more and more stuff.
Yeah, it's a great point you make, and we'll jump into this a little bit more later. But I think the fact that Vincent wasn't an actor for the first 30 something years of his life probably actually ended up making him a really great actor because there's a little something called life experiences that every great performer pulls from and draws from their personal experiences, and we've heard this many times in every acting book and every acting coaching session: personalize, personalize, personalize. Well, if you're as they say, a grown-ass man who's worked a bunch of different jobs and has had experiences in life and done things, it's probably a lot easier to figure out what that character would be doing rather than just kind of guessing. So yeah, let's keep it rolling. Another really cool movie that Vincent's in is Carlito's Way, iconic gangster movie. Um, Really cool to see him in that movie. He's also got a pretty sick mustache in that film, which you don't see very often. Vincent did a Pepsi commercial, I want to say in the mid '90s, with Marlon Brando, and there's this cute little girl who was in a lot of commercials in the '90s, and it's just really great. This little girl walks into this kind of like tough wise guy bar, and Pastore's behind the counter there, tending bar and looking all tough, and the girl orders a Pepsi, and he gives her a Pepsi, and it's just this like really cute commercial. Um, you should really check it out. YouTube Vincent's Pepsi commercial. It's great stuff. Mike, you might want to take a look at it now.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by that
It's
actually.
it's back in the day where, and we've heard this before too, guys. Like it was a different era back then. Like in the '90s, like one commercial, like one really
Oh yeah,
big national spot, like a Pepsi commercial, that could change your whole career. Like that could be enough where like, and listen, it's no coincidence that, to me at least, I don't know, and Vin, I'm sorry if I'm wrong in saying this, but it kind of looks like he did that Pepsi commercial and then like the roles kind of started coming in. So I would imagine that definitely helped put him on the radar there a little bit wider. Another great movie. Vincent is in the movie Gotti with Armando
yes,
Ponte, and um, another just terrific film. William Forsythe's in that movie. So it's a really cool kind of trajectory when you see what Vincent has done, leading him up to The Sopranos. And then, of course, once he got The Sopranos, he was kind of off to the races. Vincent's done the whole, as I call it, the circuit. Like
right.
he's been on Law and Order, he's been on Hawaii Five O. Like all of the network shows, he's done a little something on. Just a real true veteran who's kind of. Um, there are certain actors who, let me. This isn't the official technical term, but there are certain actors that just give you like the fuzzies. Like that, like, oh, when I see this guy, I'm gonna like what I get out of this movie, TV show, whatever. Vincent's got that quality where like, if you see him in a movie or a TV show, you kind of just like feel good, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm buying into this because I kind of know what I can expect out of this guy. And I love actors like that. I mean, again, like these are the kind of guys that like it reminds me of being a little kid, like when you don't even really know actors' names and you just
Right.
know their faces and you just like, I'm going to use a dated term here, but because kids don't even really flip through the channels anymore. But when you're just kind of flipping through the channels or you're going through your movie channels and you see somebody that you recognize, there's credibility there, and it makes you more likely to stop and watch that show rather than some face that you've never seen before. And Vincent's just got a ton of credibility, especially in the mafia genre. Like if you're watching a mafia movie and Vincent appears on screen, it's gonna be all right. Everything's gonna be all right.
Tommy, I have a book somewhere. I'm trying to find the title of it. I think I just found it. It's called "Hey, It's That Guy." I have a copy of this book, and there's websites on it too. And it's literally a encyclopedia. Hey, it's that guy. The FameTracker.com guide to character actors, and so people can get this book, online. And it's. I actually have the print copy, and it's just what you're talking about. Actors like Vincent Pastore and other actors who you see in a lot of stuff, and maybe they're not the leading man of the movie, but they're definitely someone that, like you said, like a bowl of hot soup always welcomes you into the world of whatever you're watching. So I'm guessing that Vincent's in that book. He could have a whole chapter on him, but it's great because what you're saying is true. There's a lot of these actors that not everybody is going to be Nicolas Cage or the lead guy in Twilight or whatever, but there's a lot of people that are working actors that are doing quite well. Also, I wanted to mention Vincent really is one of these guys that you'll see on Joe Rogan quite a bit. And I watch a lot of Joe Rogan clips, and Vincent's clips on the Joe Rogan show and other podcasts are classic because he speaks his mind. And for a guy that you might kind of stereotype as like, oh, okay, he's going to have these, old school values. He's pretty open minded, and he's willing to engage on a lot of topics that people might not give him credit that he would. And I think Vincent's just an all around classic, that people love.
No, he really is, and you can see it. It's funny, man. I've been in public with him making some movies and things like that. And, we'll just be like strolling through the hotel or at a restaurant. And people kind of go nuts when they see him. He's, like I said, he's very recognizable. There are some actors that can kind of like fly under the radar, but like he's just one of those faces that everybody kind of knows. So it's fun to see him. Like I always get a kick out of that when I'll be working on a movie or something, and I'll go out to dinner with one of the fellow talent on the show, and it's cool. It's cool to see that fans kind of come out of the woodwork and come over to them, and it just shows you that imagine your work and we don't do this for the fame. I mean, maybe some people do. If you are, good luck with that. You're probably going to have a disappointing road ahead. we don't do it for the fame, but it is probably gratifying, to realize that, like, wow, your work has been seen by so many fucking people that you could be in a mall anywhere in the United States and walking around, and at least like a handful of people are going to be like, "Oh my god!" Like, that's kind of a fame is a weird thing, man. It's really funny how that works, and a lot of that, some people become famous by accident, especially today with the internet and how you can make one stupid video involving a cat or something and become world famous.
No offense to cats.
No offense to cats, we love cats on the show. Um, but then there are some people's fame that comes from years and years and decades sometimes of hard work and effort. So I think Vincent's got that kind of fame.
Hey,
Also,
Tommy.
kind of funny, I just wanted to talk about it quick. And I had forgot this until I did a little research. Vincent is in the fairly obscure, but I loved it as a kid. Does anyone remember the Jerky Boys movie? You probably remember the Jerky Boys. And if you don't, the Jerky Boys was very fun, man. It was ahead of its time. I remember like side splitting laughter as a little 12-year-old listening to the Jerky Boys. They were comedy tapes, and what they did was they would basically prank call people,
Right.
and they would do all these characters and put on all these voices. And it was just fucking hilarious because they would get people on the other line to literally lose their minds. And it was just fun to watch. And they actually ended up making a feature film featuring the Jerky Boys. And it's definitely known as one of the. It wasn't, I don't think, one of the biggest hits in the world, but I remember seeing it as a kid, and the fact that I was a Jerky Boys fan, like, kind of loving it at the time.
Yeah, the Jerky Boys were kind of the predecessors to things like Jackass and Borat. Sacha Baron Cohen, like kind of that. Uh, you know, invading people's private space for a laugh, I would call it. I wanted to mention, Tommy, that the child actress in that Pepsi commercial is Hallie Kate Eisenberg, and
Okay.
she was in the movies How to Eat Fried Worms in 2006. The Goodbye Girl in 2004, and you're right. That commercial. Here's the thing. I listened to this. Steve Harvey was talking about this. That Denzel Washington told Steve Harvey. He said, I'm a movie actor, so people have to pay $15 and get a babysitter to come see me, Denzel, on the big screen. With you, Steve, you're doing Family Feud and everything else. You're in their living room, and what that's like is like people are like inviting you into their home. So they think of a Steve Harvey or a Vincent Pastore because he's on The Sopranos and things like that. It's like a family member, So there's interesting that even within the world of fame and celebrity, there's different types of fame and celebrity. There's the actors that you bring into your home, and then there's the actors that you go out of your home to go see, and the relationships that people kind of have with those different types of actors or famous people. It's quite interesting. What does that make me and you, Tommy, if we're coming into their laptops or their YouTube screens? I'm
Well,
not
I,
sure
I
yet.
I promise we won't take anything while we're in your laptop or your phone. We're not going to go through your pictures or anything like that. But we do appreciate you welcoming us in there, and that's a great point, Mike. And to play to that point, being in a massive Pepsi commercial at the time in the '90s, you're as in everyone's living room as possible because newsflash, kids, if you're under if you're under 25 years old, this may come as a shock to you, but we couldn't fast forward through our commercials. That shit was just getting watched. The only way you could fast forward through commercials, listen to how caveman shit this sounds. You'd have to tape a program, watch it on a delay, and then you could fast forward with your remote, very much like your remote today. I guess that was the way to do it. Like if you were really insane about commercials,
Right.
you'd have to just tape it and fast forward through. But yeah, we had to sit through that shit. And that's why there were great commercials. It's no, there's a lot of terrific commercials from that era because they realized like, well, we need the same cinematic value as a movie to keep people engaged. So yeah, please do. I really recommend everyone to just type in Vincent Pastore Pepsi commercial. It's an adorable little piece of Americana, that commercial. I just like it a lot. All right, before we talk about my personal relationship with good old Vin, um, let's talk about some of these comments here from our end action folks. All right, here we go. Stephen E says Sopranos loved it. Did a cold read from that script a few weeks back in class. I bet you that's got a lot of great monologues in Sopranos. Crazy Horse Cafe. Yeah, I think that's the place. Again, Vinny, I'm sorry if that wasn't the name of the place, but I seem to remember that. Kim says, "What's up?" Hey, Kim. How are you this week? Happy 4th of July to you. Yep. Claudia is back this week. What's up, Claudia? Life experiences. Indeed. Ari, what's up, Ari? Just
Yeah,
got
all
to
right.
see Ari last week. Good to see him again. How you doing, brother? Claudia says, life experiences at 55, at over 55, I pull from all sorts of experiences and people from my life. Stuff I never thought I'd go through, but the audience never knows. And that's it. That's what's so wonderful about personalizing things. It's nice when it remains your secret. And that's like your ammunition, your fuel to get to that point as an actor. It's kind of funny. I was just talking to this about a friend of mine. Quick sidebar. I was talking to my friend Fred Sullivan, and we all have that little acting kind of knee jerk reaction kind of thing that we like to think of, where it's like, okay, if I think of this, I'll get those emotions. And he told me that he was doing this play, and there was something that he would think about, and it worked every night. He would get this amazing range of emotion if he just thought about this one thing, until one night they were all hanging out after the show, and they were like, Fred, how do you fucking do that, man? Like, what is it? And he's like, oh, you want to know? I think about this, blah blah blah. And then the next night he went out and it didn't work. And he was just like, I'm telling you, man, like, don't ever tell anyone your whatever you're
Sense
pulling from.
memory.
Whatever you're pulling from to personalize, don't tell people about it. It might not work anymore. So I thought
Yeah,
that was
it's
funny.
the I think the term is sense memory, where you kind of like if you're supposed to do a sad scene, you go back to your grandmother's funeral or some other sad situation in your real life, and you substitute what's going on in the scene for that memory. And Uncle Freddie is right. If you share your secrets, then they're no longer personal because now it's become something you've exploited or shared with your co-stars, and it's no longer as personal. And he learned a tough lesson, that Freddie. So I appreciate what he's saying there.
Yeah, keep those personal gems to yourself. Ari says, I want to be both. I think maybe he's talking about a TV star and a movie star.
Yeah, and
Maybe.
the lines have blurred quite a bit in recent years with streaming and internet and everything else. And
Or a
man,
commercial star. I could see Ari doing commercials too.
yeah, and it's just it's interesting, Tommy, because even when we're talking about the career of Vincent Pastore, how things have changed in 20 or 30 years. All the rules seem to come up and go out the window, but we can still recall when there was a difference between a TV actor and a film actor, and now everything is so blurred, which is probably for the best in some ways.
It's true. That's true. All right, let's do a couple more and then we'll jump back into this because already we're at the 33-minute mark. I love chatting with everybody, and these shows are just going real smooth with all this fan. We love the interaction from the And Action fan base. We really do. Those
Oh,
Pepsi
Tommy,
commercials.
you froze out on me. I don't know if folks are.
I don't know. I think you're frozen on my end currently. All right, guys. Mike has seemingly frozen a little bit, but we're going to keep this thing going. So many memories of when it was a commercial break and you'd go to the bathroom and my sister would start screaming that it's coming on. You'd have to sprint through the house. Oh, yeah. You'd always have those crazy runs to the refrigerator to get something quick. And then you'd have to kind of scramble on back.
Hey,
All right,
Tommy,
guys.
I just entered a parallel universe for about 90 seconds. I just saw a black screen, so I don't know if you could see me or what. But
Buddy,
my
you
thing
were
was frozen up.
frozen,
Okay,
but it seems like everything on my end was still kind of cooking, which is
good,
weird. But you're back. You're back.
good.
Okay, so let's talk about kind of my interaction with Vin. I got to meet Vin on a movie called Blood Circus, which was a really cool movie about this underground fight ring that took place, and people would basically be broadcasting these fights to the death and putting them on the internet, and you'd have to pay for them, like some kind of crazy fucked up pay-per-view thing. And the movie starred the late great Tom Sizemore, Kevin Nash, Chuck Zito, who we're going to talk about in a little bit. And of course, Vincent Pastore. I think Christy Romano was also in the film. And it was really cool because I remember being excited to meet Vinny because I was a huge Sopranos fan, and um, met him at a bar where we were shooting. And he was just kind of holding court with a couple of guys, just like shooting the breeze. And I want to say that like he had like some cheeses and like Italian meats. Like someone had brought him like a little spread of some stuff. And David Gear, who we've talked about a lot in the show, kind of introduces me. He's like, "Oh, this is Tommy. This is Vin, and you guys, have a seat, hang out." And we're just kind of waiting for our scene to come up. Or I don't even think we were in the same scene together, but we were shooting at the same location, but we're never on screen together. And I just remember right off the bat, Vincent being very welcoming, offering me some of his, cheese and crackers, or Italian meats, like whatever he had out. He was snacking on something, and he offered it to me, and we just hit it off, man. It was like he was like my, a long lost friend, and we just kind of kept chatting. A little bit of that is, we're both Italian Americans from the Northeast, and I think that there's always that, um, kind of we grew up kind of similar ways around similar people, and we just kind of hit it off. Italians, you put them in a room together, they're gonna start being like, you're gonna hear the hey, come on, it's gonna happen real fast. All the excitement, we get a little excited around each other. So we were definitely getting excited and just kind of talking, and we were in a bar, kind of like the bars that we were talking about that Vincent grew up running. So it was kind of fun to be in this bar with him because he was like looking around. Oh, that's what it is. He was the bartender in this movie. He played the bartender. Now it's all coming back to me. Um, so yeah, basically, Vin was behind the bar, like tending bar a little bit, and his moves were so smooth because he's done that many years, and it was cool to hear him, just hear him kind of talk about those old school bar stories and some of the wild things that he encountered. And I think we even like shared a ride back to the hotel together that night. Like I took a ride with him. I didn't have my car, and I think he gave me a ride back to the hotel, and we hung out. We both like puffing a cigar every now and then, so we had a little puff. We just bullshitted, and I want to say like it was only a couple of days that we hung out during that time, but it was a really like memorable couple days. And talk about a guy who's got a world of experience and certainly doesn't need to kind of take another young actor under their wing and like hang out with him. And he did. He easily could have just kept to himself, hogged all the cheese and the cigars, and kept to himself, like I said. But instead, he was welcoming, and we had a really good time. And then a couple years later, I was making my movie Vault, and I just kind of, I wanted this movie to have a lot. The movie was so special to me, and Mike has mentioned it before. Casting was a big deal to me, and I had this big like depth chart on the board. I was literally writing on my insulation in like Sharpie all the different options, and there was this character that kind of goes verbally goes toe to toe with Chaz Palminteri about maybe or maybe not, you know, paying enough homage, paying the boss enough cash. And I immediately just was like, oh man, this has got to be Vincent Pastore. And we got in touch with him, and it all worked out. And it was a short kind of a commitment. I think he was only there for a day or two, but we got some really great scenes. I mean, watching Vincent work with a guy like Chaz Palminteri, and Chuck Zito was kind of riding shotgun in that scene, and it was just terrific. And the fun thing is, uh, Vincent goes way back with Chaz, because think about it, these are both New York-based actors who Chaz has a similar story, and I'm sure we'll be doing a full episode on him someday. But Chaz was another guy who, wasn't an actor in his early 20s, like he a little bit later in life got into it. So these guys had kind of been like paying their dues in the New York area for a long time, and getting a chance to direct Vincent, and, knowing that I had a little bit of homage that I could pay to all the gangster movies that I grew up loving, like Goodfellas, or like, Carlito's Way. Knowing that, there's a little piece of that by having Vincent in the scene was special to me. And it was cool too, because we're going to talk a little bit. I don't know where I don't think we'll ever do a deep dive on Chuck Zito. I don't know that he'll ever be a full episode. I could be wrong. Maybe he will somewhat someday down the road. But for now, if you don't know who Chuck Zito is, Chuck Zito is an actor, stuntman, and at one time was the leader of the Hells Angels New York chapter. So just a really impressive guy. Very, very unique in all the abilities he has. He's a martial artist. He's big into cars, muscle cars, motorcycles. Just a really unique guy. He's best friends with Sylvester Stallone.
Right.
Just a really unique guy. He's famous. He kind of got his fame from there was. Well, I shouldn't say this is where he got his fame from, but certainly into the entertainment world. Chuck was a bodyguard to a who's who of celebrities in the 70s and 80s, and rubbing shoulders with some of the biggest stars on the planet, and that kind of led him into this whole world. And there was this famous story where I guess Jean-Claude Van Damme was getting a little mouthy at a nightclub one night and started talking shit to Chuck, and Chuck was like, Van Damme, you don't want to do this, man. Like, you're a movie karate guy. Like, I'm a real karate guy. Like, this is not a good idea. And I want to say Van Damme like made a move, and Zito demolished him. Like,
Right.
like embarrassed Van Damme in front of a bunch of people and kicked his ass at a nightclub. And that was kind of a big deal because then Chuck went on the Howard Stern show, which, in the 90s, Stern was everything. If you were on Stern telling a story and it was a compelling story, that could be overnight fame from that alone.
It was like being on the Tonight Show 20 years earlier with Johnny Carson.
Yeah, it really was. It kind of, back to that word credibility, like it gave instant credibility to whatever story was kind of on there. So basically, Chuck kind of just kept going and took all that he had to his advantage in terms of like, got a great look, great physical ability, being a martial artist, already knows a ton of people in the business. And then the next thing you know it, he's appearing in a lot of movies and TV shows. And now he's, I want to say he's probably got over 100 acting credits to his name. And he was in Vault as well. And Vincent and Chuck are like the best of friends. And it's really fun to kind of see the two of them interact and do their thing. And they were in this movie together. So that was fun. Again, there's nothing like being able to work with people that you actually know really well. And it's probably like anything else, like playing a sport with someone that and you know all their tendencies. So I had a lot of fun working with those guys on Vault. And I really just hope that I get to do a lot more with Vincent down the road. It'd be really fun to get him back in front of my camera. I can tell you that much. It's really cool. A couple of other kind of interesting things about Vin is I've actually gotten to see Vin and his band, the Gangster Squad, play. And Vincent's a great frontman. They do a lot of like kind of classic rock and, they have Van Morrison, songs like that. And they can really rock it out. So if, you Google the Gangster Squad, Vincent Pastore, it'll come up and maybe they'll be rolling into your town and you can check out his band. But yeah, I'm excited for another mission with Vincent. One more quick side note. Again, this is the funny thing about being an actor. Vincent and I were actually in 2 movies together before we ever even met. He did a movie in Connecticut called Pitching Tents, and he did a movie in Connecticut called Black Wake. And it's funny, Mike, like, again, he's in both of those movies. I remember watching the movies and being like, oh, Vincent's in this? But, we never worked together. So it's kind of funny. It's almost like in school, like how you could go to the same school with someone, but if they're not in your classes, you really won't see them a whole lot. It's the same way on a movie,
On Facebook, it's called Vinny Pastore's Gangster Squad is the page for Vinny's band. And they do have an Eventbrite ticket purchasing page that I just clicked on now. And I'm going to follow these guys. If they ever come down here to Florida, maybe I'll go see them. Yeah, it's great stuff, Tommy, that you're talking about. And like I said, I was listening to Vinny on the Chaz Palminteri podcast today, and those two guys have a great chemistry as well. And you're mentioning Chuck Zito, and there's certainly like this class of guys that when you see them, like you made a really good reference earlier. Like you kind of feel good when you see these certain type of character actors because and for your film Vault especially when you can cross populate, like hey, we got Chuck in and we got Vincent Pastore in and here's Chaz Palminteri with the big role. It gives a certain familiarity in a good way because in this universe of kind of mob movies or gangster movies, the cross pollination it actually helps the credibility because people when they see a Vincent Pastore on the screen, they're thinking in some subconscious level, this is how the gangsters are. This is how the mafia is. This is how the guys in the underworld are. So when they see that same actor pop up even 10, 15, 20 years later in something like Vault, it gives the general audience the feeling of, oh, yeah, this is the way it's supposed to be. Because in a lot of ways, Tommy, we all base our knowledge of the world not so much on what we experience ourselves, but what we see through the media. We think of a deer, we think of Bambi. We think of a boxer, we think of Rocky, and a lot of times, if you think of a gangster, you think of people like Vincent Pastore, James Gandolfini, Marlon Brando, and that's just how the modern mind works.
Yeah, and I think, as we wrap things up, another important thing about Vincent is, again, he's inspirational. I know there's a lot of actors out there right now that are probably, look at myself. I got a birthday coming up in a little
July
bit.
10th.
And it's like, those birthdays come along and you get a little nervous because you say to yourself, man, I really thought I'd be a lot further down the acting fame road career wise at this point. I thought I would have booked more. I thought I would have had a lot more going on. Again, like, Vincent was probably well into his 50s when he was doing The Sopranos. And that was the most, that was the high watermark. That's kind of like what everybody will always remember him by. And I don't mean that to take anything away from anything else he's did. Like I said, he's been in a million, terrific movies and so many great TV shows, but The Sopranos was the biggest thing, no question about it. That'll, like Mike said, in 20 years, there's a good chance that people will still be talking about The Sopranos. It's certainly had that impact. I mean, let's face it, the show's been off the air for 20 years and people are still talking about The Sopranos. There's still gangster conventions and Sopranos cons that you can go to and meet all these people and take pictures with them. So, there's still a high level of excitement about all that stuff. And I think, Mike, and I could be wrong, and maybe you can do some quick research if anyone's interested in this. I want to say that Vincent will sometimes like do a tour with like Michael Imperioli, who played Christopher in The Sopranos, and a couple of the other cast members, and they'll do like these almost like live Q&As, almost like live podcasts where you can go and check them out and hear them talk about their time on the show. So it's one of those things where one thing, I get annoyed by a lot of things in 2023. I really
Sure.
do. This world of like immediacy and constant, response time, and you got to message this person right away, and you get, everything's on our phones. But one of the things that I do like, and it's kind of oddly contradictory to the mentality of the day, but as much as we want everything now and we need it right away and all this other bullshit, people also can pay attention to what we've now kind of come, the colloquialisms now, just the deep dive, I call it. Like
Sure.
people more than ever in 2023, like if you're into something, oh no, I want to hear hours and hours worth of information about it. Like I will just sit here and watch you talk about it for hours. And it's kind of funny how like our attention spans are so short with some things,
Right.
but if we like something, we're willing to like, oh, you got, I'm in, I'm in. Like, what do you get to say about this topic? I'll listen to 2 hours about it right now. It's kind of just a weird, doesn't make sense, but it is a thing.
Dichotomy. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you'll binge watch a 7 hour TV series on Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever, but if somebody's got a 20-minute short film, you might not want to watch it. It really depends. I did want to mention that you're talking about that type of Sopranos interactive stuff, Tommy. I experienced something like that kind of on a accident or just a happy accident. Me and my friend Jason went to Atlantic City, New Jersey, and we just kind of went for a day trip just to see what was going on, have some fun. Joe Piscopo was performing at Atlantic City, and Joe Piscopo had like this, one man show, and he's doing his Frank Sinatra and he's doing all these other characters. About midway through the show, Tommy, he introduces us to a very special unadvertised guest. It was Dominic Chianis from The Sopranos.
Sure.
Uncle June comes out,
Yeah, he
and
had
he
an
gets.
album.
Yeah, he had an album, and he comes. I think he played like a little violin, like a little
Oh,
string instrument, and Uncle June rocked the house, and it was an unadvertised, special guest thing.
that's
Uh,
cool.
and it made me like at the time this was maybe 10 years removed from The Sopranos, so it was still very fresh, and people loved it, and the reception that he got as a special guest was incredible. The Sopranos are people that, although they're guys you wouldn't want to meet in the alley, all those characters are people that are well loved.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how, the whole show is about these guys who potentially could, throw you with cement shoes into a river.
Right.
Uh, but they're beloved among people, and like I said, it's a real deal pop culture thing. So yeah, Mike, that's pretty much going to wrap it up on Vincent Pastore. Like I said, he's still doing his thing. He's still working on movies to this day. I just saw him on his Facebook page. He was working on a film just last week. So we wish him a very happy 77th birthday. Just an amazing milestone, amazing accomplishment. So Vincent, keep kicking ass, and I hope that we get a chance to work together again real soon. And it's really cool too. Once in a while, Vincent will post a picture, and I'll see him. He's got his Vault T-shirt on, or he's got his Vault hat. It always makes me feel good that he's still rocking the Vault merch all these years later. Let me go through quick to make sure we didn't miss anything here. Kim says, "Hey guys, I have to run." All right, Kim, it was great to see you, and I hope you have an awesome week. I'm back. Problem. Oh well, that
No,
was a quick
that
problem.
was a quick turnover.
Glad you made that happen, Kim. I hope you have an awesome 4th of July. Not the cheese and cigars. Oh, yes, the cheese and cigars. Great show, bros. Thank you, brother. We
Thanks,
appreciate you
Stephen
always
E.
hanging in there with us. Thanks. Have a great holiday, Claudia. Yeah, we really appreciate it. Everyone have a safe 4th of July week. We want to make sure you come back with 5
Oh.
fingers on each hand. So be careful with them fireworks. Don't drive anywhere if you're drinking like a crazy person.
You need
And
all your fingers to fit through my book, Tommy. People
oh,
need
that's
all their
right.
fingers in order to. Well, even for people with one hand or 3 fingers on a hand, you can still read my book, A Distance from Avalon, When the Dying and the Dead Reunite. My buddy Nazar did the cover art. He's really been fighting the good fight for the Ukraine, buddy, because that's where he's from. So I wanted to give him a special
Oh,
shout
good.
out. While we
Great.
celebrate our freedoms on the 4th of July, Tommy, we got to think about all the people in the world, different countries, different situations, people that are always fighting for their freedom. It's just, we haven't reached that utopian society quite yet, but we're working
I don't
towards
think
it.
so, buddy. All right. Ariana says, remember, kids, don't light fireworks. Let the adults who were drinking do it.
Good
Always a
point.
good rule of thumb. Always a good rule of thumb. All right, guys. So we're going to regroup a little bit in closing. I'm not sure what's going to happen with the SAG strike. We're going to try to do an episode next week. But if I'm somehow plucked away to go prep this movie, we will keep you informed. But if not, we're going to have another great topic coming your way. So happy 4th, everyone, and we'll see you real soon.